Learning with Lowell. Learning with Lowell is not recorded in front of a live studio audience, but we do take fan questions. Stay tuned and stay curious.
So, welcome everybody to Learn with Lowell. Today we're joined with Peter. Peter, if you want to just kind of give us a background on, your research, where you're from, and where you're going to be going soon, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, so I'm Peter Lidsky, and I'm a virologist. I graduated from Moscow State University. Such thing exists. That's still the best university in Russia. So now I'm working in UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco, and I got a position at City University of Hong Kong, and I depart there this summer. So my main topic is aging. But still, I do a lot of virology because my aging project didn't yet came to its level where it can feed myself. Mm. So it is a very unconventional, provocative idea that the community didn't accept yet.
Yeah. So you've been in academic research centers, colleges all over the world. Is there a big difference? Is college taught more or less the same? Like in Russia versus like America where you're at, or like in Hong Kong? Do you think there's like a real big difference in terms of the education you get?
I don't know yet about Hong Kong. I don't have a feeling. I've been working in Russia. I've been working in Switzerland. I've been working in America. So I think there are differences. I'm not sure it's about countries because many internationals are everywhere, at least in the Western world. But there is a feeling of what is possible and what is impossible that is very different from UCSF and the places I worked before. Because in many cases, people are limit themselves. Like in small institutes, they think that the problem is too big for them. So if they see that the problem, like a global issue, they don't go through it because they think it's not their caliber, and that somebody was thinking about it, and if nothing is published, it means that they failed, or finding other excuses, and this is entirely wrong. You know this the travel of Niels with the wild geese, this story from I think Selma Lagerlöf. Oh, yeah.
So no, I don't know the story. What is it?
So the boy becomes a dwarf, and then travel on the back of the goose across Sweden, and it starts when the domestic goose is trying to escape together with wild geese because he is afraid to be eaten by people, and the chief of the wild geese, tell him it's easier to fly higher than flying low. It's easier to fly faster than flying slow, and this is very true. So that when you work on big problems on a big scale, it gives you endorphins, and it gives you power to go on. And if you work on a small problem, you don't have this boost.
At any point in this conversation, if you find value in it, please subscribe. It is hugely beneficial, and it tells Google and everyone out there that this is content worth watching. Thank you for everyone thus far who has commented, liked, subscribed, and told their friends. Yeah, it's very true. So then, jumping into the exciting stuff that we're going to talk to today. So in your one of your publications, I forget the name of it, but in it there's something called the squirrel test, which I thought was just like a very funny way to like frame. Like you read so many publications, like how often do people like make something like the squirrel test? It's just kind of fun. So could you explain the squirrel test and its implications?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So I think you jump into the middle of the story. So the problem is that we all age, but nobody really understands what it is and why we do that. So if you ask different people in the field of what aging is, they all will give you different answers. This is very, very unusual. For any other field of science, at least in biology, you don't find that. Like in cell biology, in microbiology, paradigms were formed like in 19th century. In molecular biology. It was Watson Crick. It's 1953. It was like a lot of time ago. And here in gerontology, the paradigm is not formed. And just it is very difficult for our perception as scientists, because I grew up in virology, right? It's very difficult to look at the problem as like people before Louis Pasteur's discovery of germ theory of diseases looked at infectious diseases, right? So, and because of that, there is like a vacuum of clear idea, and this vacuum is filled with some semi-cooked concepts that strive to explain aging. And many of them are like a person sees something, like there is like wrinkles with age, and they say, okay, aging comes because of wrinkles. So, or because of mitochondria, or because of oxidation. So, and the squirrel test is a test that you ask yourself. You have a squirrel which can live 20 years. You have a rat that typically lives 2 years. You compare these two animals and ask yourself, if the rat dies because of oxidation, why the squirrel can overcome that problem and live 10 times more, right? So it shouldn't be oxidation. It should be some other reason. And most of the these mechanistic ideas, they cannot pass this test. So the why rats did not evolve longer lifespan that would match squirrels, at least. No, this is the idea of a squirrel test.
Yeah, I guess that it comes into the pathogen control hypothesis. That's I think the central thesis for your papers. Like why, like to explain why there's a variability in terms of like organisms and how long they live.
Yes. So the idea is that we don't know what aging is, how to answer this question. So what is the right approach? So if you, okay, what do we want to know? So let's say we know what is aging, right? The first fork that we will pass after that is aging programmed adaptation, or it's like entropic process damage accumulation, right? So in first, if it is a programmed adaptation, then we need to find this program and inactivate it. We need to break something down. If it is damage accumulation, then we need to classify all these damages and invent a peel against each of them and repair something. Right, so and these are two completely different approaches, completely different projects. If we pass this fork in the wrong direction, then we probably lose everything. And I believe now majority of people believe that aging is damage accumulation. I believe that that we passed this fork wrongly. And if you ask why people think so, then if you will follow where the ideas are coming from, you will come back to the papers, antagonistic pleiotropy, 1957, and disposable soma, 1970 something, old evolutionary philosophical papers that if you read them with a modern eye, they're entirely unconvincing. But their conclusions somehow got incorporated into this scientist's subconsciousness and still exist there, a little bit disconnected from the logic and reality. So, and that's why I believe that evolutionary approach is the right approach to find out what aging is, because the what is now programming the field is based on evolution. And generally, you know, Theodosius Dobzhansky, do you know this name? The guy who said that nothing in biology makes sense than in the light of evolution. This is a harsh truth because our bodies are built to spread our genes. Everything in our bodies should serve this function. And at some point, if we believe that aging evolved, and it clearly evolves, so the aging organisms should have been more productive than non-aging organisms, or short-lived organisms should be more productive than long-lived organisms. And this is a paradox that modern biology could not resolve very well. And I strive to do it, and I think I built the best model that is available. So the idea is very simple. Now we come to the pathogen control hypothesis that with time, animals accumulate parasites. So if the immune system cannot clear these parasites, right, then, and let's say the probability to be infected is constant with time. Right? Then we have like a growing probability depending on the age. So this is an ecological paper. So this is a fish. This is a parasite. And this is the probability of being infected depending on age. And you see that after 8 years, almost every fish is infected. So this parasite doesn't sterilize its host. But let's say the parasite does it. So then there are sterilizing infections in nature, and even non-sterilizing infections can weaken the hosts that will not allow them to reproduce. Then, after this age, these hosts cannot reproduce anymore, but they can infect their relatives that probably swim somewhere nearby. And then for the evolution, these hosts are useless. They are not only useless, they are detrimental. And we want to remove them just based on age. And in this concept, aging could have evolved as a primitive immune adaptation to remove these old hosts. So this is the central idea of the pathogen control theory. It is the simplest out of everything what people proposed so far. How does it fit the assumptions? And it also has the strongest explanatory power because it can explain things that other models cannot explain. For example, what are the ecological reasons for longevity in mole rats? We don't know that. Why everything that flies lives so long? And there are many other puzzles that are surrounding aging and cannot be resolved with other models.
So the first thing I'm thinking of is this. It's not like a parable or anything, but there's this idea that if a bear's attacking you, you don't need to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than the slowest person in your group, so that the bear eats them versus you. I can see the idea that once the organisms are, out-age the ability to reproduce, that the fact that they would then virally affect the rest of the population would be a bad thing. But if a benefit of them not being able to reproduce but still being around could be the idea that they're what the bear eats. Like everyone else can outrun this slow, somewhat useless to the population organism.
I'm not sure this is so the bear will kill them. I'm not sure that this is a good good model because also the bear. So do you think we age because we need to feed bears? No, you feed the bear next time will eat your kid. No. And so here also in your model, you assume that reproduction is decreasing with age. Why should it? So we are like open energetic system, so we can eat food, repair everything, and be able to reproduce forever. It doesn't contradict the laws of physics. So I think here, what in your stance, in your phrase, you make one more mistake that aging biologists often do. That first you separate reproductive aging and somatic aging, and then you explain somatic aging with the pre-existence of reproductive aging. Well, reproductive aging is also part of aging, right?
So I think this is related to a good time for a fan question to jump in, since we're talking about bears. So Humes bred, I doubt this is their real name, tigers, bears, sloths, giant pandas, leopards, and many other large animals spend the vast majority of their adult life as solitary animals. If this communicable chronic disease avoidance theory of aging were true, wouldn't we see longer lifespans from these organisms?
This is a good question. So and that's actually what people asked me in one of the journal letters. So I think that we still have chronic diseases in solitary animals. And let's say sexually transmitted diseases are also transmitted there because these animals need to meet with each other to have babies. So I would not expect that solitary animals should not age. And I think if you look on the type of parasites that should drive evolution of lifespan, these are chronic diseases with sterilizing effects. So they should not kill, but should reduce our ability to produce babies. And these diseases, at least in human populations, are mostly sexually transmitted, like syphilis or gonorrhea or HIV. So the long sterilizing. So and if you would be solitary, these diseases will be there because they are transmitted with sex.
Okay. And then they had a follow-up question, and I'm gonna put this one into chat just because I don't want to read this wrong, and and then I'll read it as well, just for everyone else. But I have like mild dyslexia, so I always feel terrible when I'm reading something out loud. But all right, there was a study that was done that looked at the lifespans of opossums in the area where there were predators and areas where there were not predators, and found that the possums in areas without predators lived longer. The result would lend more credence to the disposable soma theory for aging. Are there any natural experiments that you would recommend, or that would point to that? Would provide support for his theory in a similar way in which opossum observations showed?
Yeah, thank you for this question. This is the person is aware of the literature. Indeed, this is one of the classic studies. Stephen Austad, it's a very cool evolutionary biologist who did that. So the conclusion is that the level, if there is an island and opossums are protected from predators because there are no predators on the island, they start to live longer. So, and this is is considered as a proof that if we have lower extrinsic mortality is death from predation, hunger, cold, etc. So then we evolve. If we have low extrinsic mortality, then we evolve longer lifespan. This stance is incorrect. It is disproved mathematically. So there is just no convincing model that shows that it is true. We need to have a step back. If we have a deterministic death, so if everybody after a certain age die, then indeed aging can be neutral, and the life after a certain age is not important for evolution, and then aging can indeed evolve. The classic example here is African killifish. Killifishes live in these ephemeral ponds that dry out, and all the adults die. The eggs survive to the next season. The residual lifespan of this adult is not important because it will anyway dry out and die. So, and in killiefishes, they indeed evolved very short lifespan. However, if the reason of extrinsic mortality is probabilistic, it is not like kill everyone, but kills someone stochastically, then it should not affect evolution of the lifespan. So there are other examples. I can give your reader the excellent work of Reznik. The first author is David Reznik, that found that in guppies that also live either in the ponds with high predation or in the river, with the low predation, same experiment, but the result is the opposite. Ones that live with high predation, aging is slower. Just if we look at different species, we immediately find that this is probably wrong, because sparrows are just flying mice. They have very high extrinsic mortality, and they can live for 20 years. Or the frogs never survive to like year 4. They are just the forest snack. In captivity, they can survive to 20 years as well. So the correlation between mortality and aging is not that strong. The idea of disposable soma is a little bit different. That is also in this question, but I think this either I don't understand something, or it is yes, I think I know what this person asks. So in this paper, I think the opossums were also showed slow maturation. So they start to produce. No, it's not disposable soma. Okay, disposable soma is the idea that organisms invest in their reproduction at the expense of repair. So we produce as much as possible children, and this exhausts us, and then we die. And it's all about energy. How we have a limited budget, we can invest in reproduction, we can invest in repair. We overinvest in reproduction, the population growing, our progeny is growing, but we die. But who cares about us if we have 10,000 grandchildren? So this is the idea. It is also probably wrong, because if we feed animals with the amount of food that should be sufficient for very good reproduction and for very good repair, they don't live longer. And if we starve animals, they start to live longer. And in every situation when it comes to the economy, saving resources, like in caves, in deep water, in Arctics, all these biotopes are full of centenarian species. So it seems to be that longer life is much better saving strategy than overinvestment in reproduction. So I hope I have answered the question.
Yeah, and the great thing is that if it's like there's a theory on the internet where if you say something wrong, someone will write in. So if you didn't answer it well, I'm sure they'll leave a question in the comments, and I'll send it to you as well. But I think that seemed pretty exhaustive in my opinion. So for the different theories of aging and yours that you're proposing, do you think they're extremely dichotomous, or do you think they're like Venn diagrams where there's like overlap in terms of like the action, like when we go through like 10 years from now, we do all the research, do you think it's going to end up being like really, really dichotomous, like it's like yours, or versus like buildup of bad cells that causes it and that type of thing? Or do you see it's more like they're going to be kind of like interwoven?
No, of course, I'm not thinking that everything will change entirely. So, and if we look back, so that like a pre-paradigm infectious biology was relatively productive, right? So they did smallpox vaccine. They did all this ventilation, hygiene, sanitation, which is also saved thousands of lives. I'm sure that modern aging research has done a lot of progress. So I think what should change, that we need to consider aging as a program, and we need to break down things instead of trying to fix things. On the other hand, now some lines of research are already doing that. For example, everything what is connected to senescent cells, right? Should I explain what are senescent cells, or people know more or less?
I think we can say what senescent cells real quickly. Senescent cells, in my opinion, are basically the buildup of cells that become like zombie cells. They don't do much, and then they cause problems because of it. So you imagine it like, if you have like a really crude way of thinking of it is they're like gunging up. They're like the plaque in your arteries that cause heart attacks. In a way, like you can think of it that way. They're not actually the plaque. They're all over the place. That's how I would describe it, but if you have a funner way, we can go down too.
So I'm afraid that this description, I wouldn't agree with this description.
Okay,
because
hit me with
these senescent cells, they do stuff. They so the senescent cells, they stop dividing, but they enlarge. They are metabolically active, but they are resistant to dying. They survive. They're better in survival than normal cells if stressed. So, and they produce a lot of soluble factors, which is called SASP, senescence-associated secretory phenotype. And this SASP can make other healthy cells senescent. So it's like a loop. So, and this is clearly not a zombie cell that Matt Kaeberlein, that a guy who I respect very much, but he says that senescent cells, that are cells that stop doing their job. So this is not. I do respectfully disagree with that stance. So they are doing something, and something different. And I believe that senescent cells are part of the immune system, and we can clearly see that they are antiviral in our virological experiments. So they do interleukins. They're resistant to virus infection, and then they make healthy cells resistant to viral infection. And we are not the only people who study that. So I believe the senescent cells are part of the immune system, and this part is also got refurbished to kill us. And senolytics, according to my theory, should work. But now senescent cells are interpreted as what you say, that they are just damaged or like lazy. And they, in principle, then they should be neutral. But still, people do senolytics because in practice they show good results. So this line will stay for sure. Another thing that that exists, and I think it should gain additional support, is aging of the immune system. My model suggests that aging is the part of immunity, and it also this argument suggests that our regular immune system should take a big role in aging, and such data exist outside. I can refer readers to. I want to show this slide again. This was an excellent paper published in 2021. Authors showed that aging in the immune system drives senescence and aging of solid organs. The first author is Matthew Joseph-Zadeh, and the last author is Laura Niederhofer. So I encourage readers, encourage people to read it. So idea is, if we make if we take immune systems from older animals or artificially aged immune system, put it into mice, then the solid organs of mice are aging. And vice versa, if we rejuvenate, if we put back the younger immune cells, then the mice are doing better. And even it can help, I think, in natural aging, as far as I remember. And this should be an approach that is also suggested by my model, so that the main focus should be done on rejuvenation of the immune system in humans. So the problem why it's not that popular right now, because the immune function declines slowly, and there is no sharp transition. And we practically, just because of our organization, we love working on things that are making sharp transition. I don't have Alzheimer, I get Alzheimer. Then the funding goes to cure Alzheimer. I'm fine, I got a stroke. Funding goes to heal the strokes. So the underlying reasons in both of these diseases, or cancer also, can be decline of the immune system. But because it is not that obvious, and it should be a prophylactical intervention, so I think the immune system rejuvenation is not of the first attention for like our policy.
What would be some examples, like either theoretically or that you see out in the wild right now, that would rejuvenate it in the way that would kind of like prove out what you're like proposing? Is there any good like therapeutics or interventions that you could see coming out of what you're researching?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think that I see anything that it would be convincing. So I just cited the paper when they put back the immune system, younger immune system in mice. So I think this looks quite impressive. So, and according to my model, it should work also in humans. So, but I think it's there are many startups that are trying doing this thing or similar things. I'm looking forward, but I think they are still quite far from having like therapy in clinical trial.
Yeah. Well, I'm always curious, like, to what extent would if there was research out there developing like the one you just mentioned, would knowing this theory and seeing that your research and the work that you've done help influence the way they make decisions in developing their trials? I have many friends who are developing clinical trials, and how they pick the therapeutics, how like that huge complicated process. So like any bit of more information that helped them understand like the underlying reason why something is the way it is would help them navigate that decision a little bit more. So I'm just curious, like, what would be the implications of this hypothesis, this theory, be more widely known? Would there be, an uptick in I don't know. I'm just very curious about like the implications of this becoming more widely known.
Well, so as I said, so it should, if it is correct. So because as an accurate scientist, I never put a solid period when I believe it, but I believe according to epistemological criteria, it should be the leading hypothesis. But I still must put the if it is correct. So then it should shift the thinking from repairing to like breaking something down. So we need to understand what makes us to age. And I think many of the drugs and like interventions that are that people develop are still aimed on repairing damages that I believe are secondary. Secondary consequences of the problem. So it's like if we try to apply this approach to infectious diseases, right? We find a COVID patient, he is coughing, he has temperature, he has headache, and we are trying to repair damages. We are inventing a pill from each of the symptoms, and then we try to cure COVID with that. It will not work. So it may make dying easy, more of a joy, but it will not cure the main issue.
Yeah. Yeah, in the U.S. Healthcare system, I don't know if anyone's ever been to a doctor and needed like one therapy or something, but often it becomes like I don't like daisy chain other therapeutics like managing the symptoms of the symptoms of the symptoms. So like you go in trying to affect change on a cough, they give you something, and then now you have a new symptom, a new side effect because of the drug they gave you. So then like, oh hey, we'll give you this new thing to handle the symptom of the symptom of the thing that we're trying to manage with another therapy, and then those two interact in a weird way that apparently no doctor. Literally, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine who she was messaging her doctor like, "Hey, I'm having this problem." I was like, "Oh, you're gonna need to see a specialist." And I said, well, "Did you Google the side effects?" I was like, "No." And then she looked into the side effects. Like, what was happening to her was literally the side effects of the drug. But they were setting it up so that she was gonna have to spend like an entire day seeing a whole group of different specialists versus like understanding like that's a normal side effect, and then it's just a matter of like maybe you switch to something else or whatever. But it's very common, like what you're saying with the COVID example of like you go in there, oh, we're going to treat the cough, we're going to treat this, and we're going to treat this, and then in attempting to symptomatically affect change on the problem, then we create a whole host of new problems, and like a lot of people, it doesn't even improve their quality of life. In fact, it gets much worse, which really irritates me. I wish there was a bit more of an integrated approach to healthcare because I've seen so many different people have this happen to them where they start having they go from like, oh, I'm just taking this thing for this like cough, and within like 6 months they're taking like 7 different medications, and they've seen so many different specialists, and the specialists don't really talk to each other. It's very frustrating. Basically, I'm just saying like the healthcare is very disconnected in a way that I'm really hoping like AI and machine learning can like somehow like integrate back together, because I think patients are very suffering in that way. Which is a bit of an aside to your point. I agree with what you were saying in that like attacking the symptoms is not attacking the problem versus like attacking the problem is like mRNA vaccine of some sort.
Yeah, no, I'm not a medic, so I cannot comment on that. But of
Yeah.
course, medicine has a lot of problems, and it's a complicated area because we not fully understand what's going on in our bodies, right? So, and there are regulations, liabilities on top of that. So,
Yeah. Do you think the end result with your paradigm, what do you think the end result would be? I know that there's no way to know, but this is just like a question I ask. And sometimes scientists don't like answering it because it's like very much conjecture. But do you think it would make people live to like the average of like 100 years when we understand the mechanisms and start breaking versus repairing? Or do you think like it would be kind of like the sky's the limit in terms of like as long as you don't get hit by a car? Like, what do you think would be the implications in terms of people's actual longevity when we start, I guess, breaking versus repairing?
I think that there is no physical objections against the negligible aging as a neck rates. So, so the hit by the car scenario. But yes, so I see my main mission as like convincing people that this is also an avenue that they need to explore. Because in many instances, I try to approach gerontologists with my ideas, and they just reject me because they are so sure that this is damage. And so they're just changing the mindset more towards programmatic models would be, I think, very helpful. So I myself, I also want to go towards this cellular senescence and immunity, and I do that. So on the other hand, I believe that one lab cannot do such complex problems. So I believe that a broad collaboration is necessary, and I'm very annoyed by like there are companies that are saying we will solve aging in 5-6 years, but we do not show the data. We want to keep it for our own. I think this will not work because the people are in science often people are overambitious. They trying to be territorial, and I think this is not something that can accelerate the progress for sure.
Is there when they
So I
do
don't
this?
I don't claim I will solve aging myself. No.
Yeah, no worries. No, I understand. Like it's definitely gonna be a team approach. So like like there's Tony Stark's out there. Like his greatest invention of Tony Stark, if you ever watch Marvel, is the AI that basically does the majority of the work. He just has ideas in the AI. Jarvis does like a lot of like the legwork, which is his team. When people do dismiss your ideas, is there some evidence that they ask or that they suggest that if they could see, they would believe it more?
The aging field is full of misconceptions. So,
Mm.
and so, for example, what your follower asked about opossums and extrinsic mortality is a misconception. So, most of the people in the aging field are not aware of ecological evolutionary work that show that extrinsic mortality is not affecting evolution of lifespan. For example, and for example, another example, people believe that the speed of the metabolic rate, if we compare different species, is negatively correlating with lifespan. So faster we metabolize things, shorter they live. The problem is that this is not true. So if you look at birds, they have rapid metabolic rates, they live very long. If you look at mammals, we see correlation, but this correlation is explained with the size. Bigger animals clearly must live long because they need to grow up, but they also have lower metabolic rates. And if you try mathematically to normalize it, to compare sort of animals of the same sizes, there is no correlation between metabolic rate and lifespan. And it is very difficult to penetrate the field that is full of such strange things. And generally, people are more focused on finding a druggable target and a drug than on understanding the big picture. It was super. It was a sort of a funny story. I spoke to one of the prominent scientists field who is also in charge of funding, and I presented to him my ideas, and he said, Peter, I don't like people who are trying to explain everything with one simple idea. I almost fall from the chair because in my universe, people who are trying to explain complex phenomena with simple models are basically scientists. So in my head, this statement sounded like I don't like scientists. But I think many people in the field are so much used to exist without a paradigm that they even don't need it, or they convince themselves that they don't need it, and are sort of just not thinking this direction. Yeah, if I answered your question.
Yeah. I think I'm just keep thinking like what could they see? There was like the story of the first person who discovered like there's something up with microbes where I think he was at an not abortion clinic, like a birthing clinic, and the people would use the same knives, the same everything. They wouldn't like wash or do anything, and so the mortality rate for the mothers was ridiculous. And then he saw that if you just clean and do all these other things, the mortality rate would go down. And so he said it to people. They got very mad about it because they didn't like the implication that they were causing deaths of mothers and children. And so one person said, like, hey, if you took a step back, gathered data, came back, and like presented it to him, kind of what Louis Pasteur did, just like gather a ton of data to like prove out his theories. Maybe change, like people would have believed him, but instead he like ended up dying in obscurity. So I was just wondering, like, what level of evidence, preponderance of evidence, if like steal Joe Rogan's statement, but if would just make it so undeniable that people have to take it more seriously for you? Like, is there? I think that at the same time, maybe like what I'm getting is like people aren't really telling you what they need to see; they're just kind of poking holes to what you're doing.
Yeah. So some person said that show me the drug that works better than rapamycin, and I will believe it. No, but to develop drugs, you need to have resources that I don't have for this project. So, and it might be much more difficult to do it because rapamycin is likely using some mechanisms of lifespan plasticity that is around in our bodies. So it just exploits the mechanism that is already inbuilt, and it doesn't break things down. It is like switching a switch that is already there. So break program of aging can be much more challenging. But I think the quantity, so the theory suggests several important predictions that are not intuitive, and just testing them would be probably helpful for people to pick up. Nevertheless, I don't want to say that everyone is reluctant. So typically, young people are much more susceptible, and so they start picking it up. And also ecologists, actually ecologists, they are much more receptive to that because they are not that focused on druggable targets and drugs.
Is there
so it might come from the level of from the side of ecology?
Yeah. Is there need of like a SENS or a LEV organization, because they're very focused on the opposite of, like, they're repairing, like that side of things? Is there a need for like a programmatic break type nonprofit to help build out the open source technology versus like the startups, researchers that are not sharing data, doing all these things? Like, I really like the SENS and LEV for like the fact that they share a lot of what they're doing. So is there a need for an organization similar to that to help push forward this hypothesis?
I think that any sort of data sharing or the data synchronization, classification is very helpful. I still believe that the aging is not yet a problem that can be solved by startup. So I think it's still like a fundamental scientific issue for which, like, academic institutions or academic-like institutions are more suitable environments. So, and if you look at startups that working in aging, successful ones all go the same trajectory. They first try to solve aging, then they realize they cannot do it, and then to be productive, they switch to something else. So I think Calico switched to cancer drug, BioAge switched to obesity, etc., etc. So many are doing the neurodegeneration. So they are switching to particular consequence of aging because it seemed to be easier. It probably is easier. So if I answered your question, I think so.
Yeah, I think that. No, I think that might be an FDA thing, because for a lot of like therapies and stuff to be developed, there needs to be some type of disease impact for them to let you develop it, which is kind of annoying. Like aging of itself, they have to convince the aging's a disease for that to be something that you could like make a therapy for. So I think that what happens, and there are definitely, I'm not saying this is just my thoughts on this, but my guess is that they get to the stage where they've kind of proven out that they can be used in that way, then they target like a cancer or something big, so that then it can go through the FDA process to create something that will have like that dual effect of like affecting an illness and affecting aging at the same time. Like my guess is that the FDA, like the regulatory landscape, is what's like causing the shift.
Maybe. I don't know, because Calico has like all the resources. So and I think they were created to cure aging. So I don't think that they have this issue. You can run trials in other countries. And I believe that there are many old people who would like to participate. So it might. Yeah. I really cannot answer this question. I don't know.
Well, yeah, if anyone has any insight on this, my guess is like to run any form of clinical trial in the U.S., you have to get regulatory approval, and to get regulatory approval, you have to show that there's like a disease model that you're affecting. Even with Calico, with like the hordes of money that they have, I think there's still a little bit of like you gotta like jump through their hoops. So another big thing that was in your I really wish I cited my sources on where my questions came from, but in one of your publications, you described something called pleiotropic genes, which kind of stuck out to me. So I was wondering if you could describe them and how they might explain aging.
So pleiotropic genes are not from my model. So pleiotropic genes are like a key element of the classic, one of this 1957 theory, which is called antagonistic pleiotropy. So the antagonistic pleiotropy says that there are genes which are good in your young years and bad in your old years. So that if we wouldn't have these pleiotropic genes, then we wouldn't age, but we would be weaker when we are young. And if we believe such genes exist, then it can explain aging, because we have early benefits, we replicate like crazy when we're young, but then we pay the credit with our old year decline. So the problem is that nobody yet demonstrated any pleiotropic gene. So it's very easy to imagine a gene which has two functions. There are many, but the condition for this pleiotropic gene to explain aging is that evolution cannot disconnect these two functions. And the examples of evolutionary stability of a gene with two functions, that these detrimental functions cannot be removed or compensated with mutations in other sites in the genome, the example has been never produced, and even theoretically, it's difficult to imagine. So, and that's why I think this theory is wrong. No, in generally, it was proposed long time ago and still didn't produce much of the practical results. And this is a bad sign, because typically when a paradigm is proposed, you see the field flourishing. It didn't happen after antagonistic pleiotropy.
When it comes to going to Hong Kong as a professor, do you intend to do any research like this to keep kind of like building out your theory? Or
yeah. This is my main topic. Yes, and I hope I will find resources that will allow me to do that. So I will run virology, of course, because this is more safe in terms of finding, but I will strive hard. I believe this is a mission of my life, to develop this theory and get it to people that they consider that. Yeah.
Is there any low-hanging fruit that you're thinking about that, like, if you had the funding in place and stuff, that you would start with?
Yes, there are some. So I have several actually. So I think I will try to do more conventional research, like connection between cellular senescence and virus infection. We have very good preliminary, very good data here, as I told you. So I have ideas how to do transfer. I do also flies and longevity research. You know that in flies, longevity screenings are very tedious. You probably don't know. You need to change food often, and it's a very good model, but it's still not very good for longevity research. And I am building devices that will allow to do high scale experiments that, like, a single person can screen for hundreds of samples. So I have ideas that I can attract funding for. Yes.
What would I'm always curious when people build things. Just like, I think it's very exciting to build that machinery or whatever. What will be like the devices look like? What would they do?
So it will do. So it would be like an array of cages. It is already built. Array of cages. You put flies in. Like 25 samples, you can change food with one move, and there will be also cameras that will image flies, how they behave depending on age. Because in aging research, typically, I need to describe the problem. Typically, people look at mortality, but mortality is not aging. And this is a favorite argument of Vadim Gladyshev. If you know this guy, do you know Vadim Gladyshev? You should invite him for an interview. So he actually say that, okay, we have old people, they get myopic, got hit by cars. So mortality grows. So we prescribe them glasses, they see better, avoid cars, we improve their life quality, we decrease mortality, we don't cure aging. And that's why mortality is a bad readout. And the idea is that with the behavior, we may have a better and more abundant metrics of how the animals age. And with this, we can be more, we can collect more interesting data about aging in flies. I don't want to do mice so far because longevity experiments in mice is one PhD student, one experiment. I don't want to run these tactics right now.
Makes sense. So I was curious, like what people's, with a different perspective, what they think about other people in the field. Are you following at all? Oop, about my camera. Go back. There you go. About my foot. Are you at all following like Brian Johnson's blueprint at all? Like following what he's up to?
No, I don't follow his blueprint. I heard about him, but he is not a scientist, right? He is like a rogue, practical guy who is hyping. So I'm not sure he is anyhow affecting the field on top of the attracting the attention. So maybe he will inspire somebody to think about that, and it will be positive. As I said before, I believe that aging so far is not an engineering problem. It's a fundamental problem. As a fundamental value of what he does, because it is n of 1, right? The number of objects is too little, so we couldn't be able to extract any valuable conclusions.
Yeah, I think I raised this with someone who I was recently talking to, where I feel like he should have like it's like a blueprint of archetypes, because there's like so many different body types. So you have to like, sure, you can prove like there's like everyone have to get like a test to be like, are you the Brian Johnson body type with all the things that it's going, and then you can follow what he's doing, and then it'd have like a better impact, and then he could like slowly develop like other models with other different types of people that exist. But yeah, I think there's a little bit and it's been a while since I've looked into his stuff, but it does seem like it is like it's kind of more like a panacea type vibe, where you follow these things are better, which is maybe not true, maybe true depending on your physiology. But I think it's like right now it's like the blueprint for Brian Johnson, and if you're like Brian Johnson, it'll probably be decent. That's my my thoughts on it. But Brian Johnson out there, if I said it wrong, I'm sure you'll leave in the comments.
How do you think that his protocol works? We will know it when he dies, right? Then we can infer something, right? But it is still only one person. It's highly stochastic system. We cannot say very well because we don't know what aging is. We cannot measure it quite well. So there are like metylomic clocks that we collect blood from people by biochemistry. We can say something, but this requires statistics. So if Brian Johnson convinces people to follow his protocol, there are like hundreds of subjects, then yeah. But before that, it is entirely inconclusive. Anyway, of course, we need to encourage people to take care of themselves, see the doctor, exercise, avoid inflammation, and like have good sleep, and try to be happy, which is not always easy. Yeah.
Are there researchers out there that you are following that either be cool if it's like people that are relatively unknown, because I was like elevating people, but who are you following that you think is doing great work?
I need to think. So this I mentioned Matthew Yosef Sadeh. I think he's relatively early. So maybe he would be an interesting guest. So if you know Thomas Stoeger, who is also David's friend, he discovered that longer genes are downregulated with aging. So this is a relatively wild discovery because it's like on a system level, you have genes that like genes regulate their expression based on size. It's to a scientist it sounds as for a like a librarian to sort books by color. This is very unusual, and I think it would be also an interesting guest to chat with.
Mm-hmm. Then, where can people go to stay up to date with your work?
Where do people go?
Yeah, do you have like a website, or is the best way like Twitter or something? Like how if you as you come up with more expanding on your hypothesis, like where could people go to stay up to date? Is there a spot? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so I'm afraid I need to address them to my papers. So I'm working on that, but I still do not have a good landing site to where it. But you can also, if you have questions, I'm active on Twitter, so you can write there.
Yeah. And well, if you ever find if it does end up being just like, hey, every now and again you update on Twitter or whatever, just let me know and I'll add it to the show notes so it's really easy for people to follow along. If you ever make like a WordPress blog, I think WordPress is free. You can get like a blog there for like nothing. But if you ever do anything like that, let me know. I'll update the comments. But Peter, thanks so much for talking to us today, for joining and teaching everybody and helping us all learn along together. I don't know. I have no like good outro. I wish I had like some like really nice zinger to say goodbye to people. But thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much.